Yes, good morning everyone. 2nd March 2022. Let's see which are the important articles relevant to our examination. Look at the first page. Unfortunate death of Indian student in that Ukraine conflict. Okay, Ukraine-Russia conflict is happening, and yes, yesterday again the Prime Minister had the emergency meeting, and we are actually doubling the efforts to evacuate all the students and Indian nationals from Ukraine. Okay, let's see what happens. We are having the follow-up here. Okay, so GST revenue crossed 1.3 lakh crore in February. In that economic survey and budget discussion, we talked about almost last 1 year, the GST revenue average, monthly average, we said that it is more than 1 lakh crore now. Okay, so there is increase in GST revenue collection, overall GST revenue collection. Okay, moving on. Fine, directly page number 8, editorial page. Okay, other news are regional news. Okay, so there is one article, a cautionary tale, and this article is having the context of 6th assessment report that is released by IPCC. Okay, so the analysis is given here from environment perspective, GS3 paper. Okay, on right hand side you can see, or bottom side, Ukraine war, India and the stand of non-alignment. So again there will be some revision, but some new points, some good points are mentioned, so we will discuss from IR perspective, international relations, GS2 paper. A very good and we can say from new aspect is written on page number 9, the history of clothing and why it matters. ओके कुछ भी ऐसा कुछ नया टॉपिक डिस्कस होता है, नए एंगल से अगर इशू डिस्कस होता है. सो रिसेंटली दिस इशू ऑफ हिजाब और द हेड स्कार्फ इज गोइंग ऑन इन कर्नाटका, राइट. सो फ्रॉम पॉलिटी पर्सपेक्टिव everyone is discussing that, right. So fundamental rights and all these things, but this article is talking from history and society perspective, how Indian society has from time to time struggled to deal with we can say that the clothing styles and the attire, and how this clothing styles and attires describe, or we can say act as the symbol to negate the domination of, we can say, majority over the minority, or the patriarchal society that we have in India. So different examples are mentioned here. In last 200 years, how we can say the clothing styles or different, we can say protests by different personalities and communities, how it has resulted into, we can say, wearing of clothing and non wearing of certain clothing. दोनों के एग्जाम्पल आपको वहाँ पे मिलेंगे, ठीक है. So yes, from society GS1 paper, mains examination, it is relevant. Okay. Yes, on page number 10 you can see bottom side, doubts over defense supplies to India. So yes, there will be some delay in delivering of some defense equipments, like for example we were talking about S-400 Triumph missile system. So maybe there will be delay in delivery of this defense as the crisis is going on there. Okay. Now moving on. Okay, on page number, fine, so yes, directly coming to the page number 14. So there is one article, investments via P notes or participatory notes dropped to 87,989 crore rupees. So what are these participatory notes? It is relevant to our prelims examination economy section. Basics about P notes, there can be question in prelims examination. Also the impact of Ukraine crisis on Indian economy, from time to time we are discussing this. So you can see here, chip shortage crimps auto wholesale. ठीक है, तो फिर से shortage हम face कर रहे हैं. Automobile sector is facing this problem because of disruption in supply chains of this chips. Then on bottom side, on other, let's say, article, Ukraine war will lift import bill widen current account deficit. Okay, so lift import bill, major part of import bill is crude oil and natural gas, and as we know that the prices of crude oil will increase, and because of that import bill will increase. According also in addition to that, edible oil, especially sunflower oil, ठीक है, उसका import है, या fertilizer import है रशिया से, जो भी हम import कर रहे हैं, so of course it will contribute to, we can say, more and more increased amount of import, and that's why current account deficit will increase. ठीक है, तो ये आपको impact पता होना चाहिए. Okay, now on text and context page there is one article talking about cookie insurgency movement. Text and context page, so many a times relevant to our UPSC examination, directly relevant to our UPSC examination articles are being written. Okay, and this is on e-edition of the Hindu newspaper. So many a times students miss out on this. You should be aware about these articles, because whatever the matter that is written in those articles, it is completely can be used for our mains examination. ठीक है? Yes. So let's go into details of all these articles now. First article, the history of cookie insurgency in Manipur. This is what the article we are talking in text and context page. And we know that insurgency in Northeast India is our syllabus topic in GS3 paper, security part. Okay, internal security. Let's find out why it is in news. Recently, the cookie insurgents in Manipur, as we know that Manipur assembly elections are going on. So these insurgents have decided that they will vote, all of them will vote for BJP. ठीक है, इसलिए न्यूज़ में था. And earlier our union home minister visited Manipur, and he assured that if BJP is elected for the second term in Manipur, then they will resolve in next 5 years the insurgency problem. या जो भी उनके डिमांड्स है वो फुलफिल किए जाएंगे. तो ये इसलिए न्यूज़ में था. Okay, let's find out who are these cookies. Okay, so yes, foundation batch, recently we learned about internal security. Okay, few months back, तो उनको याद होगा. So cookies are basically the ethnic group in Northeast India. Majority population is in Manipur, but some of them, ethnic group means a group of tribal people. Cookie is itself is not tribe, rather it is ethnic group of different tribes. They are, we can say, identifying themselves as cookies. ठीक है? So yes, majority population in Manipur, but yes, some of the cookie, we can say, tribe people, they are also residing in the neighboring states of Assam and Mizoram, and also beyond the border in Myanmar. Okay, so like we say always, like they have ethnic similarities across the border for Naga people, so also for Kuki people. Second thing, the composition of the Manipur specifically. Now we are talking about Manipur, right? So composition of the Manipur, they comprised of around 30% of population of Manipur. Okay, they lives on the hills along with Naga people, Naga tribes. Okay, hills of Manipur. And we should know that other important, we can say, major population group of Manipur is Meitei, who lives in plains region of Manipur. And other are Naga people, again they live in hills region. One should know that all these are in conflict with each other. Okay, all of these. And Meitei in Manipur, 60% of the population. 60% of the population is of Meitei. And these Meiteis, they identify themselves as non-tribal Vaishnavite group. Okay, Vaishnavism following group. So, and majority population is 60%. Okay, and they live in plains. Now, this is, we know the basic information about cookies. Now these cookies are having the conflict with Nagas also, the hill tribes, and also the plains living people, that is Meitei tribes, or Meitei, sorry, a group of people. Okay, now what led to Kuki insurgencies in Manipur? Okay, let's find out this. First thing we should know that these Kukis, they are in minority in that region. ठीक है, the hill residing in hills. So of course, when they are residing in hills, they will be in isolated manner. Hills will not be continuous, right? So of course, they will be isolated, and some of the hills are inhabited by the Naga people also. The major concern started, we can say, immediately after independence, because these group of Kukis or Kuki, we can say that the ethnic groups, they demanded separate Kuki land. जैसे हमने बोला कि उनको जबरदस्ती इंडिया के साइड में सेपरेट किया गया है ना, right? So some of them are living in Myanmar also, the ethnic similarities. So they feel that we can say some forceful demarcation of boundary is there. They felt like that, and they demanded the separate Kuki land, like Greater Nagalim for Naga, we can say insurgency. ठीक है, तो कुकी लैंड उन्होंने डिमांड करना शुरू किया सेपरेटली. द नेक्स्ट वी कैन से दैट इन 1980s दिस वाज अगेन वी कैन से द कुकी मूवमेंट और इंसर्जेंसी स्टार्टेड टेकिंग प्लेस faster we can say rate. Why? Because this area was, or Manipur area was declared as disturbed area under AFSPA. So under AFSPA they started some kind of violence, and there were many cases of, we can say, human rights violations by the armed forces under AFSPA, and this continued, we can say, the anger among the Kuki people. ठीक है, तो वो इंसर्जेंसी कंटिन्यू होता रहा. You should also know the important organization, insurgent groups. Main one is Kuki National Organization, and it is having, this KNO is having Kuki National Army as militant group. ओके, आंसर में ये भी लिखना है हमें अगर स्पेसिफिक पूछता है कुकीज के ऊपर. ओके, एंड दे आर एट प्रेजेंट हैविंग सस्पेंशन ऑफ ऑपरेशन, SOO, suspension of operation agreement with the central government. Okay, in 2005 they signed this SOO, and after that they decided to have some dialogue with the government. Once this is signed, so there is a kind of ceasefire from both sides. Both sides agree that we will not carry out any kind of violent activities. ठीक है, and it gives scope for discussion and deliberation, dialogue. ठीक है, so this is signed, but yes, up till now there is no further, we can say, discussion and deliberation or talks, although this is yet continued. Every year this is continued or extended, suspension of operations. Okay, so this is the situation, but we can say that major reasons, or we can say the conflict that is going on, although they have reduced their demand, now they have moderated their demand to, we can say, within India they want now Kuki land. ठीक है, वो म्यांमार में गया तो गया, but within we can say Indian states they want to have the Kuki land. ये उनका demand है अभी right now. Okay. Also, you should know that Manipur got separate statehood in 1972. Okay, and these Meiteis are demanding separately, we can say, they started immediately after independence a separate state. ठीक है, तो उनकी डिमांड ये फॉलो करके मणिपुर सेपरेट किया गया, because they are the majority population there. Right, but what happened after that is the conflict between Meiteis and Kukis and Nagas. Kukis are concerned because they are in minorities, and they are in conflict with Naga because the present government or the past government, they gave more preference to the talks with Naga. है ना, तो उनको क्या डर लगता है कि ग्रेटर नागालिम अगर तैयार हुआ, okay, if the Greater Nagalim is formed, then of course the Kuki dominated areas will be included there. So this is concern. तो ये continue होता है उनके साथ में कॉन्फ्लिक्ट जो है, ठीक है. एंड विथ मैथीज ऑल्सो, बिकॉज मैथीज आर मेजोरिटी, ऑफकोर्स दे विल ट्राई टू डोमिनेट द माइनॉरिटी. So they do not want separate, we can say that, autonomous region for the Kukis. Now Kukis are demanding, ठीक है, यहाँ पे देखिए where the Kukis stand today. So now they are demanding separate territorial council, Kuki territorial council. Kuki territorial council, like for example in Assam what we have, बोडो टेरिटोरियल काउंसिल, राइट. सो उसी डिमांड पे किस शेड्यूल के अंडर, शेड्यूल 6 ऑफ इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन. ओके, देर आर टोटल 10 टेरिटोरियल काउंसिल इन 4 स्टेट्स. विच 4 स्टेट्स? आसाम, मेघालय, त्रिपुरा एंड मिजोरम. जो बॉटम साइड के जो है वो शेड्यूल 6 के अंडर आते हैं. एंड शेड्यूल 5 जो टॉप के है, अरुणाचल प्रदेश और नागालैंड एंड द अदर वन मणिपुर, ठीक है. तो ये रिमेंबर रखना है. सो दिस इज द डिमांड, कुकी टेरिटोरियल काउंसिल, मोर ऑटोनॉमी थ्रू दिस टेरिटोरियल काउंसिल दे आर डिमांडिंग. सो दिस इज द प्रेजेंट सिचुएशन. फाइन, अंडरस्टूड, ठीक है. तो आपको ये पता होना चाहिए कि नागालैंड और नागा इंसर्जेंसी के बाद कौन से इंपॉर्टेंट है. मणिपुर में इंपॉर्टेंट है कुकी वाला, ठीक है. सो देर कैन बी लेट्स से ब्रॉडर क्वेश्चन इन अ सेंस, द इंसर्जेंसी इन नॉर्थ ईस्ट, द प्रॉब्लम ऑफ और चैलेंज ऑफ इंसर्जेंसी इन नॉर्थ ईस्ट. एंड देर कैन बी स्पेसिफिक क्वेश्चन स्टेट वाइज, लाइक इंसर्जेंसी इन मणिपुर, देर इज इंसर्जेंसी इन नागालैंड, ठीक है. तो वो दोनों न्यूज में, लास्ट टाइम नागालैंड न्यूज में था, कॉन्फ्लिक्ट जो हुआ था अभी रिसेंटली, सिविलियन किलिंग्स हुए थे. दिस इज ऑल्सो इन न्यूज. Okay, so there can be question. Fine. Ukraine war, India and the stand of non-alignment. Okay, we are discussing this issue almost every day now. From different aspects, the articles are being written. Yes, a very good statement. It is written from IR, let's say, part. Truth is the first casualty in the war. And its corollary is no government tells truth about war to its people. ठीक है, everyone knows about this. And this is what we are also listening to, what Ukraine is saying, what Russia is saying. Are we able to believe that what government is saying, or president of Ukraine is saying, or what Mr. Putin is saying? We are not able to believe that. Why? Because every day they are changing the statements. And on ground, different scenario is there. Right? So we are not able to understand. Why? Because the complete picture, a complete truth is not always told by the leaders to its people whenever there is war-like situation. Yes, of course, the concerns related to national security are there, national interest, and because of that, the truth is hidden. So you can give the example here, like India's war with China. So up till now, even after we can say that 50-60 years from that war, we are not knowing what actually happened there. ठीक है, तो ये पब्लिक डोमेन में नहीं है, तो गवर्नमेंट डज नॉट डिस्क्लोज दैट इंफॉर्मेशन, राइट. सो of course the national interest, national security, how we can say it will impact the morale of the army or armed forces. ठीक है, अगर समझो निगेटिव आउटकम रहा है उस वॉर का समझो, तो how it will affect the morale of the armed forces at present. So that is also the concern of the government. ठीक है. Now talking about the Ukraine and Russia conflict, military conflict. So yes, we can understand that there are let's say the security concerns of Russia, and earlier NATO had agreed. ठीक है, जो हमने देखा था फाउंडेड, क्या था उसका नाम एक्ट का, नहीं मिन्स्क नहीं, हमने डिस्कशन में जो पढ़ा था, नहीं okay, let's see. There was one agreement between the NATO countries and Russia after fall of USSR, and they had decided that founding act, ठीक है, founding act, remember this, and this founding act had suggested that NATO will not have the eastward movement, ठीक है, expansion, and this was violated by NATO to some extent by offering the membership to Ukraine in 2008. Okay, and this raised the security concerns in Russia, and now we are seeing the aggression here. Also, we can understand the Russia invading Ukraine is gross violation of this principle of respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity of the states. Why? Because Ukraine is the founding member of United Nations, and still we can say the sovereign nation is being invaded by the other sovereign nation. ठीक है, तो हम बोल सकते कि वो वायलेशन है. And we are not yet clear how this war will take care of Russian security concern, because even if suppose Russia completely annex Ukraine, suppose, so the surrounding countries will be again NATO countries, no? तो उसके लिए बफर तो है नहीं कोई. Ukraine was rather acting as a buffer up till now. It was not NATO member, so it was acting as a buffer. So we can understand that how it will benefit Russia, we do not know yet, or what are the we can say untold interests, underlying interest of Russia, it is not yet clear properly. Talking about India's stand, ठीक है, so yes, India has taken the principled stand, all we know about this, but how India is facing the challenge in taking this stand? On one hand, we are having a very good relations with US and its allies in recent times, especially in defense sector. ठीक है, last 2 decades there has been increase in defense cooperation between the two countries. Also talking about the multilateral cooperation, right? So Quad countries, in Quad grouping there is a good cooperation, and it is important, it acts as a deterrence to China also to some extent. So it is important for us. On the other hand, relations with Russia are also very important. Russia has been, we can say, all-weather friend for India since independence, we can say, and it has blocked, vetoed many such resolutions in Kashmir conflict in UNSC. ठीक है, तो वो हमारे लिए हमेशा important रहेगा फ्यूचर में भी, जब भी कश्मीर का अगर इशू UN में आता है तो UNSC में, right? So that's why India will not anger Russia, or will not, we can say, vote against Russia there. That's why we abstained from voting in recent vote against Russia. Okay, along with that, Russia is also the major defense partner. It has been major defense partner of India. ठीक है, and Russia is the only country which is willing to, provide us the technological know-how. ठीक है, US जो है डायरेक्ट हमें बेचने की कोशिश करता है ज़्यादातर, या फिर को डेवलपमेंट, को प्रोडक्शन की बात करता है, बट द टेक्नोलॉजी ट्रांसफर नो कंट्री टॉक्स अबाउट लाइक दिस. ठीक है, सो बट रशिया इज हेल्पिंग अस इन टेक्नोलॉजी ट्रांसफर ऑल्सो. ठीक है, सो दिस इज पार्ट. देन प्रिंसिपल स्टैंड टेकन बाय इंडिया, टू सम एक्सटेंट इट इज लाइक अलाइन्ड विथ आवर नॉन अलाइनमेंट मूवमेंट स्टैंड. During the Cold War era, what we observe in international politics on behalf of India or from Indian side is non-alignment. ठीक है, India was not aligned to either of the bloc during the Cold War. The same kind of situation is now arise. ठीक है, तो हम बोल सकते हैं कि it is demonstration of classical Nehruian policy of non-alignment. ठीक है, although we can say that India has its principles in international relations. Whenever there is humanitarian crisis, so India will always come first, and we can say that it will ask both countries to have the dialogue, end this crisis, end the violence. ठीक है, ये सारी चीज़ें हम करते रहते हैं, of course, but we are not taking the side that this country is right, this is wrong at present. ठीक है, so yes. But also we should understand that up to what point we will be having this stand. ठीक है, if suppose there is extreme humanitarian crisis, suppose there is genocide and the civilian killings in near future, so India may have to change its stand. ठीक है, also the only lasting principle in foreign policy is the principle of national interest. This is what we are also pursuing at present. Whatever the stand we are taking, we are actually pursuing our national interest, like any other country in the world. ठीक है. So yes, in IRs we learn about both we can say real politic and idealism. ठीक है, realism and idealism ऐसे जो streams है. So this is realism, right? So the national interest is first, like for example evacuation of Indian citizens, Indian students. This is the priority or the utmost concern at present. तो national interest, ठीक है, उसके बाद देखेंगे हम बाकी चीजें जो है वो. This is how we are discussing. Let's see what happens in near future. History of clothing and why it matters. So one should understand that the article it is written having the context of that headscarf or hijab row going on in Karnataka. But the article also mentions here that why students or the educational framework should include the clothing style or the history of clothing in India. How children or students will be understanding from knowing this history the present conflict. ठीक है, आज जो है समझो वो स्टूडेंट जो प्रोटेस्ट कर रहे हैं उनको हिस्ट्री नहीं पता है, सिग्निफिकेंस नहीं पता है क्लोथिंग का, इसलिए वो क्या है कि एंगर में या ऐसे डिसीजंस ले रहे हैं. लेट्स अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट दिस आर्टिकल इज टॉकिंग. Signifying the power structures. See, dress codes symbolize and affirm the power structures in the society. ठीक है, सोसाइटी पर्सपेक्टिव से क्यों बोल रहा था मैं आर्टिकल, तो वो आपको यहाँ पे समझेगा. What kind of power structures like gender, caste or religion? Let's understand. Where these were colonial, upper caste, religious or patriarchal power structures. Okay, by using their power and even violence, states, religious authorities, upper caste and even male heads of the families could insist that people conform to prescribed ways of dressing. Societal hierarchies were thus sustained and perpetuated. Like let's say upper caste had some kind of rule that lower caste people should not wear the clothes like this or should wear the clothes in this particular manner. This has been the part of Indian society or social structure we can say. ठीक है, so same is the case with the state also. British government had certain rules towards Indians. ठीक है, we'll discuss these examples. Okay, yes. Now we also know from the history that wearing the hijab has not always been the choice made by young Muslim women who have spent good part of their 20th century throwing it off in a rejection of patriarchal community authority. ठीक है, so in past also, in last century also, the Muslim women has basically protested against wearing hijab. ठीक है, ऐसा नहीं कि ये नया है, 21st century में ही they are asserting their rights. Okay, if we know this history, then one can understand this is not the new issue. Okay, also thinking historically allow us to see the subversiveness of both these kinds of action, adopting the hijab and throwing it off, depending on the context within which the women makes that choice. ठीक है, कॉन्टेक्स्ट क्या है उसके हिसाब से क्लोथिंग होता है सोसाइटी में और स्टाइल होता है. थिंकिंग हिस्टोरिकली अलाउ अस टू अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट इज डिस्टर्ब व्हेन women who are supposed to be only the bearers of the culture, tradition and the honor, since the honor is always the property of men. ऐसे आप essay में भी लिख सकते हैं. ठीक है, wear or shed clothes in defiance of those wish to save and protect them. So basically from this we understand that how Indian society has been patriarchal in nature, within the religions also, within the caste also, and women have been using or protesting against such kind of we can say they have been actually considered as bearers of the culture, tradition. See, in our household itself, it is not about religion or caste. In every household what we observe, like जो women होते हैं घर के, उनको ही एक particular clothing और attire फॉलो करना कंपलसरी होता है. मेल को कोई कंपल्शन नहीं होता है, राइट? दैट्स व्हाई दिस स्टेटमेंट, लाइक दे आर सपोज टू बी द ओनली बियरर्स ऑफ कल्चर, ट्रेडिशन, ऑनर. ठीक है, सो दिस शोज द पैट्रियार्कल नेचर ऑफ द सोसाइटी. and it is the clothing style is linked to that, the power structure in the society. ठीक है, तो ये हम उसको relate कर सकते हैं. Now some examples, very good examples are mentioned, or case studies you can see. There is one case study mentioned, like there was tradition when the Britishers came in India. So they adopted Indian clothing style and they felt it comfortable because it was made up of cotton, and India largely being tropical country, so warm temperatures were there. वो तो यूके जो है वो तो टेम्परेट में आता है ना, उनको ठंडी लगती है तो वो अलग कपड़े पहनते हैं, बट इंडिया में उन्होंने इंडियन क्लोथिंग को अडॉप्ट किया था. But later on the British government started certain rules that the British officials will not wear Indian clothes. Okay, so that is state dominated now. ठीक है, state ने rules change किए. The next example is wearing footwear in the government institutions during British rule. So Britishers had this rule that when the Indians will come in the government office, they will leave their footwear outside. Now this has been the practice in Indian society itself. घर में आने के पहले वो जो है फुटवेयर बाहर निकालते हैं, आज भी हम निकालते हैं, right? But this was adopted by Britishers to discriminate Indians. ठीक है, मतलब Britishers जो है वो wear कर सकते हैं, but Indians wear नहीं कर सकते. Now this was protested by certain Indian leaders, and later on this rule was abolished. ठीक है. Then second, the symbolic strength of Mahatma Gandhi's experiments with clothing. So in early years of Mahatma Gandhi, he was wearing coat and tie. So he was the barrister. So when he was practicing his barristership, or we can say as a lawyer, so he was wearing full clothes. But when he traversed throughout India, when he understood the masses and their state, okay, so like rural India, he travels rural India, and then he understood the attire of the masses, and then he started wearing the cotton clothes or the dhoti, okay, and this is how he connected with the masses. Try to understand this. ठीक है, जो स्वदेशी वाला concept है या फिर चरखा, and we can say all this is to some extent connected to the masses, so clothing style. So his experiments with the clothing तो society से connected है, history से connected है. Then Ramakrishna, so he was we can say Ramakrishna mission जो है, या फिर Ramakrishna, he was the spiritual guru of Vivekananda. So he adopted Muslim clothes to understand Islam better. This has been the example. Other examples like Dr. Ambedkar decided to adhere to three-piece Western suit as a sign of social mobility, of modernity, and in defiance of upper caste proscription of lower caste. है ना? So this can be given the example. Then we can say that this rich, varied and contradictory past, which are our heritage, must be brought back into the classroom for discussion, debate, and above all for building greater civility and respect for difference. ये actually आज हमारे इसमें नहीं है. The respect for difference, that each and everyone is having their choice to wear or not to wear particular type of clothes. ठीक है, and this has been in the past. ठीक है, ये past experience जब तक students को नहीं पता होगा तब तक उनमें ये civility नहीं रहेगी, tolerance नहीं रहेगा. That's why the writer is of the view there should be one chapter in the let's say school curriculum. Earlier there was one chapter in NCERT, but that was removed in the revised curriculum in 2019 about this clothing. Yes, so this was removed, but so ये आपको एक सोसाइटी के एंगल से ये डिस्कशन पता होना चाहिए. ठीक है, जो भी चल रहा है उस पे. Now moving on, a cautionary tale, 6th assessment report on impacts, adaptation and vulnerability. ठीक है, ये IPCC का रिपोर्ट है. Now this report has highlighted many things. Separately maybe we will deal with ED lectures. This 6th assessment report, and this is series of report. Last year first report of this 6th assessment report was released. Now they have released the remaining 2-3 reports under this. Now the main highlight here is that world faces unavoidable multiple climate hazards over the next 2 decades with global warming of 1.5 degrees Celsius. Even temporarily exceeding this warming level would mean additional severe impact, some of which will be irreversible. It is talking specifically next 2 decades. 1.5 डिग्री सेल्सियस अगर टेम्परेचर बढ़ता है तो उसमें काफ़ी एक्सट्रीम इवेंट्स हो सकता है. Report notes most of the targets that countries have set for themselves in the COP26 recently last year Glasgow में जो हुआ था are too far in future to have an impact in short term at meaningfully reducing the climate impact. Okay, so this is not sufficient. Whatever the mitigation targets announced in the COP or updated NDCs, nationally determined contributions, so they are not, we can say, sufficient. The report is, this is what they are talking. Now the major point of emphasis is particularly South Asia. In the South Asia, the trend in wet bulb temperature. Okay, this wet bulb temperature represents the impact of temperature and humidity, its combined effect. Okay, temperature and humidity and its combined effect. Okay, so increase in wet bulb temperature, some of the cities like Lucknow in UP, so they have, in the report they have analyzed this wet bulb temperature and its increase. So what they are saying that its effect on health of the people, it will be very severe. Especially it will result into consequences में अगर देखते हैं हम, so it will result into heat waves, extreme heat waves. So this is going to have the toll on, we can say, human life. It will also result into reduced productivity of human, excess temperatures, ठीक है, extremities, cold हो या warm हो, it will result into decline in productivity. Other consequences that we should understand of this increasing temperature is sea level rise. In South Asia, this is going to be major problem, and India is also having the coastline of 7,500 kilometers, and majority of population in India, major 3 cities, Mumbai, Chennai and Kolkata, they are located in coastal area, low lying areas, we can say. Any kind of, we can say, increase, like the article mentions, or this report has emphasized, like around 44 centimeter to 66 centimeter height increase in sea level rise within this century. This is the possibility of sea level rise. Even if we implement whatever the mitigation measures we have announced, ठीक है, तो भी इतना sea level rise होने ही वाला है, because this sea level rise is the overall impact of last 200 years emissions. जो temperature बढ़ गया है, तो immediately it is not going to be reversed. Okay, and that's why we should understand, even if we are able to reduce the temperatures or control the temperatures, this effect is going to be there. ठीक है, sea level rise. And that's why, as a way forward, what we should focus more now, especially talking about the sea level rise. So we should focus more on now. Up till now, the emphasis is given only on mitigation. Now we should start on adaptation front, because the effect of climate change started, we can say, showing. Okay, so focus should be on adaptation in coastal areas. So of course they should be rehabilitated, the people should be rehabilitated to the interiors. There should be some kind of structures, because there will be continuous flooding of coastal areas. Okay, and to protect the let's say coastal cities from this frequent flooding, either we can have the flood gates, or we can say that the embankments in the coastal areas, or we can say that the complete area should be vacated. तो second option इतना भी feasible नहीं है, So there should be embarkments in the coastal areas so as to protect the cities. ठीक है, तो excess waters जो होगा तो वो हम उससे बच सकते हैं. So from this flooding in the coastal areas. Also we should understand that the coastal areas, our we can say especially in eastern coastal, which are wider one, and the agriculture is practiced there. तो किसी भी तरीके का saline water incursions अगर होता है, so that will result into reduced we can say productivity of soil और salinization हो जाएगा. ठीक है, या ग्राउंड वाटर जो है वो saline water से मिक्स हो जाएगा. So that needs to be protected. Agriculture, salt tolerant varieties should be developed. ठीक है, salt tolerant varieties of rice ये चल रहा है, development में है. Okay, so again flood prone varieties should be also developed. ये सारी चीजें हमें अभी शुरू करना है. ठीक है, ये adaptation measures है. We are adapting to these changes now. Okay, so yes, and as a way forward you can talk like this. ठीक है, ईडी में बाद में हम डिटेल में उसको देख सकते हैं. और इन्वेस्टमेंट वाया पी नोट्स ड्रॉप. यस, सो लेट्स सी व्हाट दे आर सेइंग हियर अबाउट पी नोट्स. Okay, basically it is a negative stance by the investors. Earlier we had said there will be some impact on the investment, and Ukraine crisis that is going on, तो ये उसका impact है. And FIIs under which these P notes are used by the investors, तो of course they are volatile investments. FIIs जो होते हैं या FPIs as compared to FDI. Let's find out the details of this participatory notes. They are overseas derivative instruments. Okay, overseas by the foreigners. Derivative means yes, it derives some benefits by not acquiring these assets here. Okay, means they are not having the ownership here. Rather, they are just deriving the profits. That's why derivatives. And yes, financial instrument that have Indian stocks as their underlying assets. तो वो इन assets में invest करते हैं. They are not owning those assets. Try to understand. ठीक है, physically own नहीं कर रहे, तो उसमें invest करके profits generate करते हैं वो. They allow foreign investors to buy stocks listed on the Indian exchange without being registered. ठीक है, तो अब ये एक कॉज ऑफ कंसर्न भी है. लेट्स अंडरस्टैंड दैट द इंस्ट्रूमेंट गेन पॉपुलैरिटी एज FIIs. ओके, फॉरेन इंस्टीट्यूशनल इन्वेस्टमेंट्स, FIIs. सो दीज FIIs आर एक्चुअली रजिस्टर्ड विद द SEBI, the regulatory body, and within these FIIs actually really gives the P notes to the foreign investors to invest into Indian market. Okay, yes, to avoid the formalities of registering and to remain anonymous, started betting on stocks through this route. ठीक है, ये जो foreign investors होते हैं. P note owner doesn't own the shares because they are in demat account of that intermediary FII. P note owner doesn't have voting rights in the shareholder meetings of any company. Okay. The primary reason why P notes are worrying is because of anonymous nature of the instrument, as these investors could be beyond the reach of Indian regulators. तो ये 1992 से P note शुरू किया, SEBI ने allow किया, and thereafter the concern started about this funding to the terrorist organization and money laundering issue. ठीक है, तो बहुत सारे ऐसे इन्वेस्टमेंट पी नोट्स के थ्रू इंडिया में आ रही थी. जो थर्ड स्टेज होता है ना मनी लॉन्ड्रिंग का, कि री इंसर्टमेंट जो होता है, ठीक है, लेयरिंग होने के बाद री इंसर्टमेंट जो होता है, थर्ड जो होता है, क्या बोलते हैं हम, स्टेज ऑफ मनी लॉन्ड्रिंग, तो ये पी नोट्स के थ्रू हो रहा था. इट वॉज बीइंग डन थ्रू पी नोट्स. सो टू रिमूव दिस कंसर्न मेनी स्टेप्स वर टेकन. लाइक फ्रॉम जनवरी 2011 FIIs had to follow KYC norms and submit details of transactions. Then in 2014, new rules on foreign portfolio investors made it mandatory for those issuing P notes to submit a monthly report disclosing their portfolio. कहाँ कहाँ कैसे कैसे invest हुआ है, monthly report submit करना है. And more recently, SEBI mandated that in addition to KYC, एंटी मनी लॉन्ड्रिंग रूल्स विल बी ऑल्सो एप्लीकेटेड टू पी नोट्स होल्डर्स. तो और स्ट्रिक्ट हो गया है. So major strict measures have been taken here. KYC norm, know your customer norms, and anti-money laundering rules, they are applied to P notes. Up till now they were not, earlier this was not applied to them in India, Indian jurisdiction, but now they are applied. Okay. So on the basis of this information, yes, ठीक है. Okay, so about P notes we have to find the correct statement. Yes, they are overseas derivative instruments. This is correct. These investment are considered as foreign direct investment. This is incorrect. FIIs होता है ये, foreign institutional होता है. Yes, SEBI has mandated KYC norms and AML will be applicable. So this is also correct. ठीक है. So 1 and 3 only. ऐसे क्वेश्चन जरूर आ सकता है आपको प्रीलिम्स में. डिटेल्स आपको पता होना चाहिए. Okay, so C should be the answer here. Fine. Okay. Any question?
Sir, P notes are not holding any amount of shares. Then how are they getting returns, sir?
Because see, FIIs will have the share. Okay, and these FIIs are having dividends.
Okay.
So within FIIs they will, whatever the FIIs are earning the profits, no, they will give certain amount to P note holder also, no. Whatever the amount they are investing through that FIIs, तो वो dividend type का हो गया.
Okay, so they are not investing directly.
Not directly, ये सब indirect हो रहा है उनका.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so ये indirect हो रहा है. FIIs will decide everything. तो उनके बैलेंस शीट में दिख जाएगा कि कहाँ कहाँ इन्वेस्टमेंट हो रहा है. बट FIIs में कौन इन्वेस्ट कर रहा है? फॉरेन इन्वेस्टर्स, वो पी नोट्स के थ्रू. बिकॉज FIIs विल इश्यू पी नोट्स टू द फॉरेन इन्वेस्टर्स. बट वो पी नोट्स के डिटेल्स ही पहले नहीं पता रहते थे कि कौन है ये होल्डर. ठीक है, तो वो मनी लॉन्ड्रिंग इससे थ्रू ज्यादा हो रहा था. ठीक है, फाइन, लेट्स स्टॉप देन. ओके, थैंक यू.